AMC blockbuster shares of the movie theater chain nearly doubled yesterday, making it worth more than half the companies in the S&P 500. Incredible move. This year, this stock is up better than 2,800%, and it is climbing this morning, up another 18% on AMC Entertainment Holdings. Joining me right now is the founder, Lane Generational founder and managing partner, former Raymond James vice chairman, Fred Lane. Also joining the conversation all morning long this morning is Fox Business's Dagen McDowell and Forbes media chairman, Steve Forbes. Fred, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. What do you make of this rise in meme stocks? It wasn't just AMC, but Bed Bath & Beyond, COS, GameStop also gaining yesterday, but this AMC move, I mean, how do you explain this?
Well, I think it's mostly a function of the enthusiasm about the opening of the economy. I think people are way overreacting to this. This is a great example of a stock where an institutional investor could not support a valuation anywhere near this level. Anybody who's thoughtful, doing the work, looking at cash flows, looking at future earnings projections and so on, would come to a different conclusion. But this is the kind of excess that is a carryover from really where we are in the economy. I think it's important to recognize this is the strangest emergence from a recession that we've had maybe ever, in the sense that usually coming out of a recession, the individual household is strapped for money. They have credit card debt. And usually that recession, by the way, is not a function of a natural disaster, or maybe we should say a lab-created disaster. It's really a function of other factors in the market and in the economic backdrop. It's a very strange recession because people are awash with money, and they've been speculating in stocks, as we know, and they've been making money in them. And by following the herd, people have made money, and of course some have not made money as they've been entering too late. I think AMC is a perfect example of this. It's not, to me, a healthy thing when a stock like AMC goes up 18% in a day, or goes up 75% in a week, or 100% in a week. This is a very unhealthy thing in the market, but it's something that we can live with, and it's an excess that will go away. But I think it's the backdrop here, of course, is that the consumer has a ton of money, a ton of savings, has reduced its credit card debt, and is eager to get back and live. And I think that's very positive for this economy. If we leave it alone, I think we're going to have great GDP growth in 2021, and I think we're going to have great GDP growth in 2022. S&P earnings, as an example, are should be in 2021 $190 a share or thereabouts, and another 10% above that in 2022. Now, all of this assumes, of course, an undisturbed economy. Okay, it all assumes we're not increasing taxes, and of course, it also assumes we're dealing with inflation. Of course, there are a lot of inflationary factors we can talk about.
Yeah. But look, Fred, we're not leaving it alone. You know that President Biden is throwing trillions of dollars at this economy. There was a budget proposal that he unleashed on Friday, $6 trillion budget from Joe Biden. The op-ed that we've talked about a lot yesterday from the Wall Street Journal, Biden's slow growth budget gamble, has expectations that it's a sugar high. We'll see all this money produce some pretty good growth in 2 years, but after the second year, growth goes all the way down to the 1-2% level, mixed with inflation fears. The Federal Reserve's Beige Book yesterday revealing that companies are struggling with supply chain disruptions and hiring difficulties. They're expected to raise prices across the board and across the country. I know we'll get more on the economy this morning when we get the ADP employment report out and the jobless claims number, but what we're looking at is an economy that is not left on its own, Fred. How concerned are you about all of these factors? Higher taxes coming, higher spending coming, and obviously a lot slower growth down the road.
Well, I'm deeply concerned, and I don't like it because I think a lot of this is I'm a bit of a libertarian at heart, and I believe in smaller government, and I don't believe that a new administration needs to make changes just for the sake of changes. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. I think it's important to recognize that GDP is a function of the following. It's a very simple formula. It's consumer spending plus investment plus government spending. Government spending is not a negative to GDP, less trade deficit, and if it is a deficit or plus surplus, and then minus taxes. So when we do government spending, that's a plus, but when we take away with taxes, that's a minus. And what I'm saying here is we don't really need to have the level of government spending that is being proposed. That's pretty clear. And it's also clear to me that we don't really need to increase taxes, because in a strong economic expansion, you're going to be collecting tax revenues. And the more we threaten higher taxes and don't do them, the more we're going to actually accelerate the tax receipts. So in my view, if we just leave well enough alone, that would be great. But I think this administration's under a lot of pressure because let's face it, Washington's Democratic right now. They're going to try to take advantage of the next 2 years or 1.5 years to jam through a lot of legislation. I just wish they wouldn't. And I don't say that. This is not a partisan comment on my part. I'm being completely independent.
I know it's fine.
I just, I have my political views, but I'm not going to share them. But what I do feel strongly about is that we should leave this economy alone.
I understand what you're saying. Just because a new administration comes in doesn't mean you have to make changes from an economy that's moving fine on its own. Look, we're looking at a bounce back from an economy that was closed a year ago. Let's see where it goes without throwing all of these additional things at the economy. I totally understand what you're saying, Fred. And by the way, we haven't talked about the fact that the Federal Reserve yesterday said that it will be unwinding some of its balance sheet, right? You've got trillions of ETFs and bond funds, and then the ECB is now seen extending higher bond buying pace into the summertime. Does that play into your model at all, Fred?
Oh, here's how it plays into the model. I think that as stimulus declines, and I think it needs and it should decline, and we have inflation, I don't think the Fed is going to I think the Fed is going to try to avoid increasing rates. I think the Fed, as well as all central banks around the world, are going to accept a higher level of inflation. I think they need to have a higher level of inflation to deal with their deficits. This is the only way to deal with the best way to make government debt cheaper is to inflate. And that's exactly what we're going to see. You know, my friend Richard Galanti from Costco, during his earnings call, he's a great friend. I hired him at Donaldson, Lufkin, and Generette about 40 years ago. Okay, Richard was talking about all the factors at Costco that they're dealing with. And, you know, it's across the board. Inflation is everywhere. Whenever I talk to a CEO or anybody running an enterprise, I always say to them, what do you see for inflation? And they say, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And that's partly because of all of this money being thrown at the economy.
Yes.
Fred, it's great to catch up with you always. Thank you so much. Fred Lane joining us there.
Thank you so much.
Lane Generational. We'll be right back.